Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Millennium TV News. This is FORID with today's top stories. Kerry to discuss Iran nuclear deal with Egypt and Qatar. TPP talks make progress but no deal on Pacific trade. FIFA scandal. Argentine players not guilty in US court. Charleston gunman players not guilty to federal charges. Striking images of blue moon from around the world. Dear viewers, now the details. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is heading to Egypt and Qatar to meet the foreign ministers of both countries, with a nuclear deal with Iran topping the agenda of the talks. Kerry, who arrives in Cairo on Saturday, will not be visiting Israel, Washington's main ally in the region and the primary foreign opponent of the Iran agreement. U.S. officials rejected suggestions that Kerry's omission of Israel from the itinerary signaled that the Obama administration had given up trying to convince Israeli leaders of the merits of the deal. The last time Kerry spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was on July 16, 2 days after the Iran deal was concluded. Officials reportedly said the trip was primarily designed to follow up on a May meeting that U.S. President Barack Obama hosted for Arab leaders at Camp David, at which the U.S. tried to ease the worries of its Middle East allies over Iran. The officials, who spoke on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss Kerry's trip publicly, said the talks in Qatar would take stock of progress made on those goals, particularly since the Iran deal was signed. One U.S. official said that Kerry would use the meeting with the foreign ministers of the Gulf Cooperation Council to try to respond to any remaining questions they might have, hopefully satisfy them and ensure that they are supporting our effort going forward. Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif visited Kuwait, Qatar, and Iraq in a similar tour earlier this week to talk to his counterparts about the unclear deal. After leaving the Middle East, Kerry will travel to Southeast Asia, stopping in Singapore, Malaysia, and Vietnam before returning to Washington. But the U.S. Trade Representative Michelle Forman said ministers were more confident than ever that a deal on the proposed Trans-Pacific Partnership was within reach. He said it would support jobs and economic growth. Among the striking points were issues relating to the automobile sector and access to dairy markets. No date has been set for the next round of talks. Mr. Froman said significant progress had been made in the discussions on the Hawaiian island of Maui. He said work will continue on resolving a limited number of remaining issues. Australian Trade Minister Andrew Robb said 98% is concluded, blaming the big four economies in the group, the United States, Canada, Japan, and Mexico, for the failure to reach a final deal. New Zealand Trade Minister Tim Grosser was a bit after the talks on the Hawaiian island of Maui. Japan and the US are two major players in the proposed partnership. The undergrowth has been cleared away in the course of this meeting in a manner that I would say is streets ahead of any of the other ministerial meetings that we have had, he said. New Zealand has said it will not agree to a deal unless it significantly opens up dairy markets. Japan's economy minister Akira Amari signaled out intellectual property rights as an area on which agreement had proved impossible. Drug patents are another divisive issue, setting the U.S. at odds with all the other countries, said one participant quoted by Reuters news agency. The TPP will encompass 40% of the world economy, but the latest delay means that any agreement is now unlikely to have time to gain approval in the U.S. Congress before the elections this November and the end of Barack Obama's presidency. The U.S., Japan, Brunei, Malaysia, Vietnam, Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Mexico, Chile, and Peru are taking part in the talks. Alexandro Berzecco is among 14 people accused by U.S. prosecutors of paying and receiving millions of dollars in bribes. Mr. Berzecco had been president of a sports marketing firm, Turner's Y Companies. He was freed on bail set at 20 M and is the third person to appear in court over the case. Prosecutors allege the Argentine conspired to win and keep hold of lucrative media rights contracts from regional football federations by paying up to $110 million in bribes. Mr. Berzecco faces charges of racketeering and wire fraud conspiracy. He disappeared after the case was launched in May, turning himself into Italian police before being extradited to the U.S. Jeffrey Webb, a former FIFA vice president, and Aaron Davidson, another former sports marketing executive, who were both also among the 14 indicated in the U.S., have also pleaded not guilty. 21-year-old Daniel Roof, who is white, wanted to plead guilty on all counts according to his lawyer. His lawyer, David Brack, said he would not enter guilty pleas for Mr. Roof until prosecutors determined whether they would seek the death penalty. U.S. Judge Bristol Marchant entered the not guilty plea on all counts. Mr. Roof appeared in the courtroom shackled. He was silent except for a few yes responses to the judge's inquiries. Charged representatives and the family members of victims of the 17 June attack also spoke briefly. The charges against Mr. Roof include hate crimes, weapons charges, and obstructing the practice of religion. Police have said the shooting was racially motivated. The Roof has been linked to a website featuring racist writing. Mr. Roof also faces charges from the state of South Carolina, including 9 counts of murder. The object, believed to be part of a wing, was flown to the French capital from Reunion in the Indian Ocean. From there, it will be transported to a Defense Ministry laboratory in Tolisso for analysis. The Malaysia Airlines Boeing 777 traveling from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing vanished in March 2014. There were 239 passengers and crew on board. Since then, an Australian-led search effort has been focused on a vast area of the southern Indian Ocean about 4,000 kilometers to the east of Reunion, a French overseas department to the east of Madagascar. Experts have said the 2-meter object washed up on a beach could be a movable piece of a Boeing 777's wing called a flaperon. A team from Malaysia Airlines has already arrived in Toulouse, and French officials say analysis of the part should begin on Wednesday. The military laboratory is expected to verify the serial number of the object and conduct further tests. Fragments of a suitcase found on the same beach are also to be examined. The center in Toulouse was also involved in analyzing debris from the Air France flight AF447, which crashed on a flight from Brazil to Paris in 2009, killing 228 people. They blamed government corruption for a lack of investment in infrastructure. On Thursday, the government declared a 4-day public holiday after temperatures broke 50 C, with appeals for people to save power. Blackouts are common during the summer as Iraq's electricity grid struggles to deal with the extreme temperatures. Analysts say that the country's grid was severely damaged by U.S. bombing during the 2003 invasion. The infrastructure has also been repeatedly targeted by insurgents. In some areas of the country, it is common to have only a few hours of electricity each day. The government has admitted that at peak times during the summer, it will only be able to provide half the century's required power. On Wednesday, Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi ordered electricity to be cut at state institutions and the homes of all government officials. However, the protesters on the streets of Baghdad remain angry. He are demonstrating against a failed government, a government that has disappointed the hopes of the people, protester Nahida Ahmed told. Earlier this month, a man was killed at a protest about shortages near the southern city of Basra. Dear viewers, here. New Taliban leader Mullah Akhtar Mansoor calls for unity. Florida's president declares a state of emergency. Search ends for missing 10 fishermen in Florida. Bin Laden family on Blackbush Airport crash plane. Skydivers set new vertical formation record. Viewers, let's move to the next news. Mullah Mansoor was named as the new leader on Thursday, after the death of former head Mullah Omar was confirmed. But a Taliban spokesman told the BBC he had not been appointed by all Taliban, going against Sharia law. The audio message said, "Fighters should unite, as division in our ranks will only please our enemies." It also said that the Taliban would continue our jihad until we bring as Islamic rule in the country. The 30-minute recording was released to journalists by Taliban spokesman Zabiullah Mujahid on Saturday. Some Taliban figures have accused pro-Pakistani circles of imposing Mullah Mansoor, who is known for his support for peace talks, on them. But in the audio message, Mullah Mansoor dismissed peace talks as propaganda campaigns by the enemy. At least one Taliban faction would have preferred Mullah Omar to be succeeded by his son. Another Taliban spokesman, Mullah Abdul Mannan Niazi, said those who elected Mullah Mansoor had not followed the rules. According to Islamic rule and principles, when a leader dies, a shura is called, then its leader is appointed, he added. Monsoon rains over many weeks have led to flooding in most of the country. Myanmar's President Thein Sein declared a state of emergency in 4 regions: Chien, Magwe, Sangin, and Rakhine. Thousands of people are sheltering in moisturizers, but one report said people from the Rohingya Muslim minority were turned away from some shelters. The Myanmar Times said security forces turned away Rohingya Muslims from abandoned schools and community centers in the western Rakhine state. The United Nations says 1,040 lakhs people in Rakhine are living in camps near the region's capital, Sitwe. Most are Rohingya Muslims. Myanmar has suffered heavy rain and landslides for weeks, but wind and rain from cyclone Koman added to damage in recent days. MG Kien, the director of disaster management with Myanmar's Red Cross, told the BBC that the country was facing a big disaster and that there was a risk of more rain over the coming weeks. The Red Cross was waiting for information on the extent of damage of refugee camps in Rakhine, he added. All but one of Myanmar's 14 provinces were affected by the rains, and aid groups were struggling to reach those affected. It said those regions have seen huge destruction and face difficulty returning to normal. Pierre Perrin, the spokesman for the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Myanmar, said some towns in Rakhine were completely cut off. On Saturday, the UN said it was to send emergency teams to assess the need for food, drinking water, and shelter. Myanmar has long endured cyclone winds and associated rains. In May 2008, Cyclone Nargis made landfall on Myanmar's coastline. According to the Red Cross, 84,500 people were killed and 53,800 were left missing after the storm. One of the most deadly elements of the cyclone was a high storm surge, which flattened many villages. Perry Johan and Austin Stephanos, both 14-year-olds from Tequesta, Florida, have been missing at sea since 24 July. Captain Mark Feder says that the search along the Atlantic coast has been a true all-hands-on-deck effort. The Coast Guard has searched about 50,000 square miles, according to Captain Feder. The family will continue a private search, which has been financed by donations. A $1 million reward has also been offered by friends and family for the boys' safe return. Perry and Austin have been described as skilled sailors who grew up boating and fishing. They had worked together at a local fishing supply store. Friends and family have held hope that their experience on the water had kept them alive. Austin and Perry had told their parents they were planning to fish in the nearby Loxahatchee River. Police were called when the boys failed to answer mobile phone calls and several summer storms had passed through the area. Their 19-feet boat was discovered capsized on Sunday about 180 miles from where they set off 2 days earlier. Since then, no new clues have been discovered. It came down near Blackbush Airport, close to the Syria border, killing the pilot and all 3 passengers. In a statement, the Saudi ambassador to the UK, Prince Mohammed bin Nawaf Al Saud, offered condolences to the bin Laden family. The embassy said it was in contact with the British crash investigators. The statement said His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Nawaf Al Saud has paid his condolences to the family and relatives of Mohammed bin Laden at Blackbush Airport in Britain for the great loss they have suffered as a result of the crash of the plane that was carrying the family. The embassy added that it was working with the British authorities to ensure the speedy handover of the bodies for funerals and burials in Saudi Arabia. The plane, an Embraer Phenom 30, is reported to have belonged to an aviation firm owned by the Saudi-based family of the former Al-Qaeda leader. The plane, which was arriving from Milan, Italy, crashed into a British car auctions site at the airfield shortly after 15 BST, exploding on impact. Eyewitnesses at the scene said there had been a ball of flames and several explosions. As pilot and all 3 passengers were killed, but no one on the ground was injured, Hampshire police said. The force is carrying out a joint investigation with the Air Accidents Investigation Branch and has urged anyone with pictures and videos to get in touch on 101. In a statement, Blackbush Airport in Italy, which is currently closed, said the jet had crashed near the end of the runway while attempting to make a landing. Phil Gills, a former air accident investigator, said it suggests that the plane either landed too late or tried to take off again when the pilot realized it wasn't going to make the end of the runway, or it may have been a problem with the brakes. There has been a rare opportunity to witness a unique lunar event in the night sky, a so-called blue moon. When 2 full moons are seen within a single calendar month, the second is called a blue moon. It is quirk arising from the interaction of the lunar cycle around 29.5 days and the human calendar, in which months range from 28 to 31 days long. The next blue moon is not due until 2018. Dear viewers, now the sports news. A new world record for the largest ever vertical skydiving formation has been set in Ottawa. Aliens by 164 flyers who formed the shape of a flower in the sky. The group easily beat the previous record, set by 138 skydivers in 2012. After only a few seconds in formation, the skydivers broke apart and landed safely on the ground. Stephen Finn took 8 wickets and Ian Bell hit an unbeaten half-century to guide England to an 8-wicket victory over Australia in the 3rd Test at Edgbaston and put the hosts 2-1 up in the series with 2 matches to play. Bell 65 not out and Joe Root with an unbeaten 38. Encored, the chase after England were set to 121 to win on the 3rd day at Edgbaston, where a dominant performance banished memories of a heavy defeat at Lord's. England lost Aster Cook 7 and Adam Leith 12 to set a few nerves on edge, but Bell dropped on 20 by Australia captain Mitchell Clark made his second 50 of the match to spark ruckus. Celebrations after Root hit the winning runs. The hosts took command on day 1 when Australia were shut out for 136. James Anderson, who will miss the next test with a side strain, taking 6 wickets, a feat matched by the recalled Stephen Finn in the second innings. Victory at either Trent Bridge in the 4th test, which starts on August 6, or the Oval in the last match would guarantee England winning back the Ashes, which they so dismally surrendered at a 5-0 loss in Australia in 2013-14. Australia's tail wagged on Friday, adding 97 to their overnight total before they were dismissed for 265 just before lunch. England had hoped to quickly take the 3 remaining second innings wickets, but Australia pushed their lead to 120 before Moeen Ali removed Mitchell Starc. Starc had led Australia's residents with some big hits in his 58, sharing an 8th wicket stand of 64 with wicketkeeper Peter Neville 59, who held up England for 147 balls and completing a maiden test half-century. Finn eventually made the breakthrough when Neville was caught down the leg side, the paceman taking a test-best 679 after a 2-year absence from the side. "It's been a fantastic 3 days," Cook said. "I don't think the pitch was 140 all out, but the way Jimmy bowled, backed up by Steve, was fantastic." Scorecard: Australia 136 all out and 165 all out. Warner 77, Finn 679. England 281 all out and 124 2. Bell 65, Hazelwood 121. Viewers, let's have a look Millennium TV News recap. Kerry to discuss Iran nuclear deal with Egypt and Qatar. TPP talks make progress but no deal on Pacific trade. FIFA scandal, Argentine players not guilty in US court. Charleston gunman players not guilty to federal charges. Striking images of blue moon from around the world. You're up to date with our top stories so far here on Millennium TV, and don't forget to log in www.millenniumtv.net. Thank you and stay with Millennium TV. Allah Hafiz.